Welcome to our vampire discussion.
Hello, everyone. This is Greg, your host of Goddamn Gamecube, and this is Season 4. Follow Goddamn Gamecube on social for updates on the show, and subscribe to us on YouTube for bonus video content. Thank you, and enjoy today's episode. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Goddamn Gamecube. Greg and Riley are your hosts today. My brother Nick, the intern, is here. And I want to introduce Shannon, our second intern. She's going to be doing an audio production internship with Goddamn Gamecube. Shannon, welcome. Hello.
Happy to be here.
Thank you. So we're going to be talking about Vampyr today, a game by DONTNOD. And now, before I kick this to Riley to start, I just want to say this is a game that I didn't think we would ever talk about. This is one of those where I think I either picked it up at GameStop a million times, put it down, and I didn't really know what it was. And when I kind of saw that it was almost like a Bloodborne-y action game, I said, I'm intrigued enough to give it a shot. Okay. So, Riley, why don't you take us on this Twilight adventure? Go ahead. Let's do it.
Thank you, Greg. Welcome to our vampire discussion. Hope you're having a good time. Okay, so as you mentioned, this is an action RPG developed by DONTNOD Entertainment and published by Focus Home Interactive in 2016. I have not played any DONTNOD games. Greg, you have played Life is Strange?
Yeah, so I've played Life is Strange, and I think the strangest part about playing Vampyr
so
was...
to speak.
Exactly. What I said was... this is the Life is Strange people. Like, it's the same team. I don't think they've ever made an action game. It could be their first one. And also, you know, this game, it didn't review very well. And like I said, I kind of picked it up a bunch of times, and I'm really glad that I played it. Yeah. So why don't you continue us down the journey here? Let's go.
No, yeah. I mean, I'm glad you recommended it to both Nick and I. It left a decent impression on me. I think it was a worthwhile purchase. It might be a little odd for the audience that we're covering this, but we're going to get into it here. So I want to drop some names here before we get too far. This game was directed by Philippe Moreau. I'm going to try to pronounce these correctly. Designed by Guillaume Lichtel.
Okay. Big ups.
Written by Stéphane Beauverger. With art direction by Gregory Z. Zeus.
Okay.
How about that? So this team... they felt that vampires were an underexplored and multifaceted opportunity for a game. I think I agree. It is set in 1918 during the Spanish flu epidemic. I wanted to bring up super quickly, kind of interesting to play this in a post-pandemic world, post-pandemic air quotes. But I'm curious how it would have been received if it had released a few years later with knowing what we do now about everything, because I'm like, oh, this is like people are wearing masks, you know, like it's all this paranoia and you know, just kind of I don't know. I thought it was interesting. Did you feel the same way?
Well, also, I mean, European studio, European game, Americans, and the way Americans treated maybe COVID versus other nations.
Maybe it would have been the same. Right? Would have reviewed even more poorly.
You know what I'm getting at.
So in this one, you play as Jonathan Reed, the most serious man in the world, as he attempts to solve the mystery of his transformation into a vampire. Attempting to fulfill both his duties as a doctor and his newfound thirst for blood. The concept of a vampire doctor, I believe, was utilized because it explores the dichotomy between compassion and self-preservation at extremes. You have a man of science who is challenged by the existence of the paranormal. I thought that was very relatable. I thought that was cool. Don't think I've seen it too much in a game before. You got a relatively small, manageable London map cut into 4 districts. I thought personally kind of hard to navigate this setting a little bit on purpose. There's a lot of locked doors at the start, but I liked that you eventually get the rich people's quarantine pass so you can get into other districts. It's a pretty cool. I mean, like it's better than just getting like a key. I like that a lot.
Sure. I mean, also, I'm sure we'll talk about this later. This game did like a better job with like classism than I thought.
Oh yeah. No, I got that all in there.
Mm-hmm.
As the story unfolds, sort of the divide between the rich and poor starts to crystallize a little bit as one of the major themes. The majority of enemy factions you face are so you have the Prewin, who are the zealous vampire hunters, who you're kind of at odds with being who you are. The Skulls, which are mostly feral, lower level vampires that show signs of decay. They're kind of zombie-ish. The Volkods, which are the beast ones. Yeah, it's kind of weird looking. They're like enforcers or bodyguards. And the Ekons, who you belong to. They are fully sentient vampires, well-composed, upper-class hoity-toity.
And now you guys finally understand my Facebook job history, which is really
you're an Ekon.
It took many years for us to understand
What
that.
is it
but now we do.
exactly?
I said I was like a former Ekon at the Ascalon Club.
Yes.
Something like that.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
So that was something, speaking of the Ascalon Club, what I thought was an interesting aspect of this structure was how Lord Redgrave, who is the leader of the Ascalon Club, he describes his intent to subjugate and eliminate and exterminate the Skulls, so the Ekons will be accepted by the rest of society. So we're not like those, rabid whatever.
We're not rabid vampires. We're classy.
We're classy vampires.
Classy
okay?
vampires. So, but they very much have a pejorative sort of context. There's a lot of lower class, people who wind up as Skulls. And I thought that was very interesting, not unlike the mentality of some middle-class people who push each other down or mock/blame the poor in order to feel closer kinship with the wealthy. I did think that the werewolves were an odd inclusion. It helped diversify the experience a little bit, some different enemies. I didn't feel like they really were fleshed out enough to fit in with the rest of the game. They weren't really developed. Did you feel the same way? How did you feel about the werewolves?
Yeah, I just think like it also like they weren't really developed or a part of the story other than I think there was one boss encounter and a couple of enemies.
Yeah.
It also just like it really makes me think of like the Twilight romance where there's like
Sure.
a werewolf. There's like I don't know much about it. Shannon does.
All right, maybe don't get too far
Yeah,
if
we
you
won't
don't
get
know
too
too
far,
much
but like
about
that's
it.
kind of what kind of popped in my brain is like this game was like a really hard sell to me to try to sell it to you guys because I'm like, well, it's kind of the same themes as Twilight. Like it's not the same. You should play it, but anyway, when it comes
Yeah.
to werewolves, there isn't much there.
Yeah,
You can also turn
it's
into
there.
one. Isn't that right? With one of your ultimate
I
skills,
think
you
so.
turn into like a
Oh,
beast
really?
for a little bit.
Yeah.
So there is definitely some. Maybe there is cut content a lot.
You can be both.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know if it's technically called a werewolf. I don't know if they actually call them werewolves. In
I
this game,
think
but
I think we agree with your opinion. It's
Yeah.
a little off message.
it's a little undercooked.
Yeah.
A little half-baked.
Yeah.
So ultimately, I want to open up to the floor here in general. Vampires and 1800s London have been done a lot in all sorts of media. Did you feel like this game set itself apart?
Yeah, I certainly did. Nick, if you don't mind, I'm going to start. I kind of took it right
Please
from
go.
you.
No, go right ahead. You're good.
So I think the biggest sell for me was really I have never seen a morality system done this way. Where if you think vampires, it's always like what's the word? Like maybe it's not the Victorian era with the top hats and the suits and whatever. It's always the same shit. But with me, you kind of brought it up in the intro where it's like you play as a doctor and you have to, be the guy who helps people and serves the public and you have to resist your urge to fucking eat them.
Yeah.
I have never seen a morality system where if you want to be a good guy, the game is extremely hard.
Yeah.
And I think with this game, I have just never seen, I guess, vampires in this setting where it's not sure, there's some love and romance, which we'll talk about, but that's not the main point.
Yeah,
I have
yeah.
never seen that. That's what I think set it apart. They really put like almost, I don't know what the right word for this is. Like you're a guy who has to serve society, who's been put up against this, I don't know, this monstrous weird thing that's in you. And I've never really seen that in this setting. Nick, I don't know if you can maybe articulate what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, so I have a little bit of a different opinion than
Sure.
you do on this. While the gameplay, I think, sets it apart,
Yeah.
I don't think the setting really does it any favors.
Yeah, sure.
I think the setting's a bit generic.
Oh,
Yeah.
And
totally.
you also have the most generic British dude name ever. Like John Reed, that's your name. That's
Yeah,
the main
right.
character. It's like,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah. Exactly.
very generic. Even the cover art's kind of generic looking too.
I almost think
But-
like that's why it was such a hard sell
Yeah.
to get to. I'm trying to tell people to play this game, but it's
Yeah.
like, yeah, it's a vampire game. Yeah, it's in the Victorian era. Yeah,
Yeah.
you've seen that every time, but you
Right.
should play it.
Right.
It's really hard.
Like,
Yeah.
I do think what you said, Greg, about the gameplay really does set it apart. And I love how you are a blood transfusion specialty doctor who becomes a vampire.
Right.
That
Yeah,
to me
yeah,
is just
yeah.
really funny.
The plot demands it.
Right, exactly. I think it's
plot
really
does
funny.
demand it.
Yeah. But I mean, aside from the gameplay and the setting, I was annoyed annoyed at the whole being locked out of everywhere. And John Reed saying, "It's locked,"
It's-
is forever embedded in my
it's
mind.
locked, all right.
Yeah, whenever
Sure.
I go to open a door and it's locked, all I think of, it's locked, all right.
It frustrated because the traversal is kind of a pain in the ass to me,
Yeah.
where you wake up in the hospital or whatever, and you gotta, you have to walk all the way. It's like, not that I wanted like fast travel, but maybe like, I don't know, something to make it easier. All right, so that's been the setting, the premise. We're gonna get into the sights and sounds here a little bit. I have no strong opinions on the visuals personally. I think it looked fine, fairly unremarkable, but I did enjoy how the supernatural elements were portrayed for the most part. A lot of kind of more ubiquitous, abstract, smoky, like people talking to you and stuff, like, who is this? It develops intrigue successfully. The voice acting in particular is very solid, especially from Jonathan, the generic serious man.
Yeah.
But I did want to get into him a little bit more. Anthony Howell is the actor. I think he is a very he played Yurt the Silent Chief, our guy from Demon's Souls.
Yep.
A couple other roles, but his performance in this game is very good. I think it could read genuinely as someone who is sincerely compassionate about the people he's talking to, or sinister or predatory. It could really go either way. And then so you said the music is not very remarkable in this game. I kind of disagree. I think
Oh,
it's
really?
like,
Okay.
well, you get the big intense cello performance in the beginning. Like, I mean, here's the thing. In a lot of these games, I've heard it. Like, they don't. This is one of those games where I'm going to listen to something else while I'm playing it.
Sure.
Like so it's not. I think there are memorable aspects, but it's not, mind blowing. The composer, who I've just disparaged, his name is Olivier Derivière. Derivière sounds a little like derivative to me. I'm fucking burning this guy. He chose to mix traditional instrumentation with some industrial music, which was interesting, to convey Jonathan's internal conflict. The cello, as I mentioned, features heavily, and its range lends itself very well to evoking both tragedy and monstrosity. He also chose the choir as an oppressive influence on the main character. The music when you are possessing someone is very unnerving to me. It's like very low kind of chanting and stuff. Like, get a little shiver, little wiggles there. I thought the sound design was somewhat lacking. Personally, I felt that if it had been punched up a little bit, it would have made the combat a little more satisfying.
It's a lot of like squishy noises and grunts. Yeah.
It's very like, whatever.
Yeah, it's very meh.
A little detail I wanted to mention. I like the train that chugs on the tracks above. I don't know if you noticed it.
Yep.
No one really draws your attention to it. Doesn't figure into the plot at all. It's just like it's doing its thing in the background. It's a nice little detail. So with that in mind, do you have anything in particular that you'd like to bring up here?
Yeah, sure. I think one of the we'll talk about all the details, but actually I like this game a lot for a lot of reasons. But something that I found weird, or like kind of inherently like you kind of have to get over, is that all of your interactions take place in the dead of night, and I'm like, why isn't anyone in bed? Like, why is everyone just up walking around? Like,
Well,
it's really weird.
you do have those conversations where you're like, why are you up at this hour?
Right, but I mean, it's like every
night.
every night, like, and you kind of have to do it to further the plot.
Yeah.
But like every citizen, every doctor, everyone is just up at like midnight plus.
Yeah.
Like, this is kind of odd
for indefinitely.
Yeah, exactly.
It's kind of funny.
Nick.
Yeah, so I'll remark on the sound design a little bit. I was going to say, when you mentioned the music, I was like, oh, it's not really remarkable. And then you mentioned the main theme, which I think is pretty good.
It's like as soon as you turn it on,
Yeah.
it's like pretty.
Exactly.
I know.
Other than that, I don't remember any of the
I just think the
OST, but-
Christina Perry song is better. But go ahead.
I did. I'm not disputing the sound effects being bad,
Yeah.
but I did think they had a pretty good use of it. Like when you're walking around, you could sometimes hear the low snarls of skulls around the corner.
Oh, sure.
Yeah,
You can
yeah,
kind of
yeah.
like see. Oh, okay, so there's something near
There's a
me.
bit
I
of an
can't see it.
atmosphere there.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
Well, I also want to
Yeah.
say too, this is not a big budget game.
Right,
Like
we
this
should
was,
say
like,
that.
you know what this game falls into? This sort of AA game that doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah.
I think
That's why
you
it's
know
good.
there were resources put into certain things and not other things.
Yeah.
Which I'm not saying in a disparaging way, but I think when you have a game that does not have a hundreds of millions of dollars in budget, you have to. What are you going to put money towards? And
Right.
I don't think audio design was it.
No,
was probably
yeah.
others, which is
Yeah.
fine.
And the other thing I wanted to bring up, I do think the voice acting was generally very good.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
I told you both this. My one huge concern with my complaint about the voice acting is I tend to read faster than the characters can talk, but you can't really skip through dialogue without
No.
skipping huge sections.
I didn't
which I
even
thought
think
was
about
annoying.
that.
But I don't know if it was a glitch, but it was perfect. If it was not a glitch, it was perfect. But even if it was still perfect. When you finally talk to your mom, it would not allow me to skip her dialogue.
Huh.
It's like,
Oh,
you can't skip
man.
through mom's dialogue. Of course you can.
Listen to
Yeah.
your mom.
Right, listen to your mother. I don't know if that was a glitch or not, but
I'm
I
not
thought it was
sure.
pretty funny.
You know, but with this game, I think like it was a really. I'm sure we'll talk about gameplay. The game went through these like combat sections and a ton of talking.
Yes.
And this game, it was a little bit exhausting when you had to almost go through a talking section, but it was so well acted. I was really into really every story beat and every conversation because it was just. I feel like a lot of attention was put into the performance, which I didn't. I mean this in the nicest way I can. Life is Strange is not the best performed game. Like, it's not very good, and there's a lot of problems with the voiceover, but they made an action game with a ton of voiceover, and I felt like, did the same team make this?
Right.
The quality was just way higher.
And I'm glad you mentioned that too, because like there is so much talking in this game. The voice acting better have been good.
Yeah,
Otherwise,
right.
that would have been a huge
Yeah.
problem.
Yes, indeed.
Sure.
Yeah, so you mentioned gameplay. Let's get into that. Great emphasis is placed on your relationship with there are 60 citizens you can interact with. You can further this by completing quests for them, hearing rumors from other people, or entrancing and interrogating them. And I thought this is kind of, I think, it's a little bit of a Majora's Mask kind of dynamic where you have they feel like they interact with each other, like they're not just there for your benefit. You know, they have relationships and beliefs and whatnot. And the crazy thing is that the better your relationship, or the more you know about these people, the higher your XP reward will be should you choose to drink their blood and kill them once your mesmerized level is high enough. And this is, easier for weak-minded or, simpletons, citizens, and the more educated or wiser citizens are harder to entrance, right? Very interesting system. Citizens can also fall victim to various diseases that lower your net XP gain by killing them. You have to heal them to get the optimal amount. You can create cures by using a very bare bones, straightforward crafting system. By nature, feels a little bit more crucial than many other games that use one. I felt like it mattered more. This creates an interesting wrinkle when you are helping somebody and then they're suspicious of you. And it's like they question your motive, like, why are you helping me? And like this is like the first game that I think I've ever played where they have good reason to suspect you. Like it could be like, are you helping me to be nice? Like, or are you helping me to kill me?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
It's kind of interesting, an interesting dynamic. Something else that I didn't know about, because I played a completely clean, didn't kill anybody, any citizen. If you kill certain citizens, sometimes their loved ones will join the vampire hunters.
Oh,
that's
interesting.
So they'll
Did not know that.
There's actually something else too. Like, I'm not gonna say this is a downside, but I'll speak on this a little bit. There are some citizens in the game that have quote unquote side quests.
Yeah.
But for the side quest to get solved, you have to eat them or the person they're interacting with for the quest to finish. So do you remember the interaction in the hospital where someone was debating whether to have their limb amputated or not, and their friend was saying yes or no? The operation will only happen if you eat someone involved with him.
Oh,
That's how you
interesting.
progress the quest. So if you were to go on a 100% morality run like Riley and I did, my man, you don't see the result of any of those side quests at all. Which
Okay.
I'm not saying it's a downside because it keeps the game very focused and away from stupid shit. Like, you know, this game did a good job of just not being a checklist of stuff.
Yeah.
But it was a little weird wrinkle where you can't see the result of a lot of these conversations or conflicts.
Sure, yeah.
I don't
agree.
mind that at
Yeah,
all.
I
I
didn't-
guess I don't mind that. And by the way, please lump me into the. At least I attempted.
tried.
I tried to get the 100% of
We're-
morality, but
We're
we'll get
going
there.
to discuss
We'll
that
get there.
very crucial
We'll get
thing
there.
that
Sure.
So
killed you.
can I mention one really funny thing? I hope
Yeah.
it's intentional about the citizens thing. It's called a menu. I really hope it's intentional because you can also choose to eat them. Like you're looking on a
Oh,
restaurant
okay.
menu.
Nice.
Like I saw that, I'm like, oh, please tell me they meant that on purpose.
Meat's
If
back
not,
on the menu, boys.
If there was a fork and knife, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. So overall, I wanted to bring up a quote Nick had
Uh-oh.
a couple months ago, maybe. I never really had the urge to play it, but once I booted it up, I was locked in.
That's
And I
true.
think that's a good way. That was how I felt. You know, like you mentioned a little bit. You know, the exploring dialogue sections versus combat. What did you enjoy more?
Sure, it's one of these almost like gaming the headspaces where, okay, I'm about to go to a new section of the city. There's going to be like 15 people to talk to.
Yeah.
I'm locked in for the next 2 hours, exhausting dialogue options.
Yeah.
But it's not. But I don't not enjoy talking to everyone, but I know I'm in here for a couple of hours of time. Not too different from our Disco Elysium discussion. There
Yes.
was a lot of talking and a lot of script.
Yeah.
Which I guess this game is a little bit tiring, I guess, in that aspect where you're going to be doing a lot of reading.
Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of agree there. I think I preferred the combat and exploration over the heavy dialogue citizen section. I knew I at least wasn't going to try and eat anybody.
Yeah.
So I didn't try a ton of those quests because I was just like, what's the point of making them like me more if I'm never going to eat them to get experience anyway?
Yeah.
Well, I'll say this too. Like, the game does a good job of, if you exhaust people's dialogue options, I believe you get a tiny amount of EXP for
That's
learning
true.
for learning stuff
Yeah,
about them.
you do.
Yeah.
That's true.
Something, now that we're talking about gameplay, something I think is very important, that if you eat someone, you get a ton of experience points, which lends into your leveling up and whatever. But if you don't eat anybody, you are severely under-leveled, and the game is really hard.
Yeah.
So I like the talking sections because that was, not only did I find the performance good, I'm like, this is my one opportunity to get some tiny amount of
I
experience.
could grind
point.
some experience
Right.
here talking to people.
Because
Yeah.
you know it's really hard to level up if you're trying to be a good guy.
Yeah. And I mean, there's a good amount of exploring, looking for
Mm-hmm.
stuff that's going to improve your shit as well, like your weapons and whatnot. So, to get further into the combat, you have a basic sort of health stamina system similar to our favorite games, the Souls series, with the addition of a bite mechanic, which functions kind of similarly to posture breaking in Sekiro. I personally felt that the guns were underutilized.
I don't think I shot one the whole game.
Really?
Yeah.
I got really mad at a few bosses and unloaded some shotgun shells on them.
yeah.
That's
They all
about
have
it.
different weaknesses, and so like the werewolves are weaker to guns. So that you have some motivation to use them, but it's, I don't know, I thought it was kind of an undercooked part of the combat.
Definitely.
There is also a blood gauge, which can be spent on healing or upgradable moves. You have it can also be filled by using specific weapons, by biting enemies or eating rats.
I love that.
And it's only rats. There's nothing else. There are no cats. There's nothing, no
There's only
dogs.
rats.
Just rats.
Only rats. And
amazing.
he every time he's like, I can't believe I'm doing this.
He's just so disgusted with himself. for
Yeah,
doing it.
and
great.
it's really funny because it's like, I mean, it's this or people, man. Like
Yeah.
there's no other animals here. I like this healing economy better than Bloodborne's vial system personally, because it's kind of a similar vibe overall, as we talked. Helps entwine the nature of Jonathan's condition with the moment-to-moment gameplay experience. The XP that you mentioned can be spent on improving your character's numbers or learning and upgrading moves. To me, this is where the pacifist run-through really counts. It's not only, as you said, I didn't think this game was like hard, but it's probably a lot easier if you ate people, right? And something that, I mean, you're kind of handicapping yourself here It is ultimately, I felt like I was getting a less versatile combat experience because there's fewer moves that you can try out.
Yeah, that's what I feel like. That's almost the economy of the game. I do want to mention, just so I'm sure a lot of people listening have not played this.
Yeah.
I make sure people know the various vampire hunters and generic enemies, you can bite them and eat them with no penalty to morality.
Yeah.
It's the main characters with names that you can't eat.
Right.
So I make sure that's clear.
Yes.
And I like the healing and blood economy of this too, because I almost like was thinking several levels ahead where I'm like, well, I'm not going to level up that much. I'm not going to be able to experience all these skills. I think I'm going to swing away and heal myself.
You can reset, but it does cost you.
Exactly.
And leveling up also takes a night, so time will progress if you level up.
And
so you have to make sure
people will get sick or
Yes.
quests will progress. You have to think about it before you do anything. So I was going to open up the floor here. How did you use your XP?
Sure, mine was very short. I like I said, I was very, I don't know what the right word is, economical, conservative when it came to this stuff. I think I focused on I'm going to swing a weapon and heal myself so I'm never screwed.
Right.
Like I was very worried about soft locking myself in this game by not being strong enough to do anything, or I can't heal enough to survive something. I mean, I think I unlocked I don't know what the ultimate move was, Abyss, where you can throw people in the air.
Oh, yeah.
Dude, I didn't unlock much. I think it was healing, Abyss, and I'm just going to swing the weapon. I don't know about Nick. Go ahead.
A little bit more varied than that.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, a little bit. So,
Nick had some fun here.
Yeah, I mean, God, I'm going to have some fun with it. You're a freaking vampire. You can throw blood spears and hit people with big claws. Like, why am I not going to do that?
That was my main move, the spear.
So mine was more so the claws.
Yeah.
So I focused a lot of my attention on health and stamina.
Yep.
But secondary, I had the claws and I have it written down here, but the spring move where you can launch yourself at people.
Yeah.
So I would like launch myself at people, use the claws, and then then bite them or some shit.
Yeah.
And I also had that one ultimate move with the blood cauldron move.
Yeah.
Where you can stun people and make their blood explode, kind of gnarly. But
I think to make it clear to like the audience, this game is like Bloodborne light with a skill tree. That's the best way I was trying to sell the game to people. It's kind of Bloodborne-y combat with
just enough to be satisfying.
Just enough.
It's like that's
different
what I think.
moves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I did want to, before we move on, I wanted to bring up, you were like, oh, there was DLC for this game?
Yeah.
And I didn't know that the version I bought had it, and I didn't know what it was going to present itself as. It's just like gear that you find like in your room in the hospital, and you get like a sword, and what it does is it when you hit people with it, it refills your blood gauge.
Oh, so this game was probably a cakewalk for you.
Dude, I was like, why would you use anything else?
Right.
And I didn't realize that it was
a DLC
weapon. Like, you know.
Correct
one
me
of
if I'm
those.
wrong, but I think some weapons, when you upgrade them, granted you the ability to steal blood on contact. I
Yeah.
The
believe.
bone saw does.
This
Yes.
one does it like right out of the gate.
Yeah, so it's like super overpowered. Got it.
So kind of funny balance wise.
You can also upgrade. We should mention you can upgrade your bite too.
Yes.
To get more blood from people. I think the skill, it's really funny. It sounds like an energy drink. It's called Big Thirst.
Big Thirst.
So I found that useful kind of in the beginning because I felt like, at least in the beginning of this game, it was a little bit of an overpowered strategy to keep stun locking people and just biting them over and over again.
Sure.
But so that was kind of the way I progressed through the beginning.
Yeah, I mean it's a valid way to do it because I mean what winds up happening is I think your offhand weapon knocks down their stamina.
Yes.
And but the next time you do it, it takes more.
Yes,
it takes
that's
more
right.
hits to knock them down like
That's
that.
right.
That's pretty cool. I would like to, unless you have any other further thoughts on that, get into the characters, the side quests.
We
let's
should. The
do
only
it.
thing I'll say is the combat is more serviceable than you would think from DONTNOD.
It's fun.
The Life is Strange.
It's actually
Yeah.
very fun combat.
Yeah,
It's like a little janky, but not too janky. Like
more
it
enjoyable
worked.
than I thought, but let's talk characters.
Yeah, let's get into the characters here. I thought it was very interesting that you have a wide cast of characters here that spanned all directions of the moral compass. Makes your choices a little more complicated. I think very interestingly, they successfully portrayed people of different ethnicities and walks of life, very different people, which is odd or unusual for an 1800s setting. Kind of swept under the rug normally. So I just wanted to mention some of my favorites, and if you want to chip in on those or talk about your own, feel free. I'm going to start out with, so my character, he gets into the hospital his first night and he immediately sniffs out that something's going on with the security guard, and he and one of the nurses are planning on running away.
Oh, I remember this.
And I just thought it was really funny because it's like, I mean, I don't know. There's nothing necessarily wrong with what they're doing, but it's funny that your character is super duper serious, and it's one of the first things you can do. And I'm like, wow, this guy means business. Like, let's go. So I like that. I liked that one of the nurses.
Is that the person you accuse of having a relationship with someone else? Is that them or is that someone else?
They are having a relationship.
Yes. Yeah, that's that one.
Spoilers.
Right.
Nurse Brannigan is the character. She's like the Meryl Streep looking lady.
Yep.
Mhm.
And I thought it was very interesting where she is a incredibly capable person, but because of the time period, she can't become a doctor.
That's right.
So everyone in the hospital's like, yeah, just like she's like the most trustworthy person we have. I'm like, oh, I feel really bad for her. Like
Right.
she's awesome. But the character who thinks she's a vampire, do you remember this?
Oh yes, I remember her.
She's I mean, it's really funny because you obviously know she's lying because you are intimately aware of all your symptoms and everything. She's like, oh, I need blood. I have a thirst for blood. And it's kind of funny. It's an interesting that not a lot of other developers would create a character like that. I thought it was very interesting, the guy at the hospital who is stealing from the dead, the Indian guy. Dr. Rakesh.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, this is kind of, I didn't know this at first, but you can sneak up on people and like see what they're doing. You can you remember this where you're looking through windows at people? It's like you find a specific spot.
That's right.
Like, he's one of the first people you can do that with, and you can confront him and like, I saw what you're doing. And he's like, they don't need it. I'm like, hey, he's got a point.
He does have a point there.
Do you remember the fraudulent vampire hunter?
Oh, I love that guy.
Ichabod.
Ichabod.
He's like he's like the Gilderoy Lockhart kind of character. He's very like, you can smell his bullshit from a mile away.
He's very endearing. I liked him.
Yeah. I thought it was awesome. One of the first people you meet, he's like a town drunk, and then you find like the more you talk to him, you find out that he was like an anarchist, and he blew up this other character's parents.
Yes.
And like he's been drinking himself into a coma ever since. That was a pretty interesting side quest.
This is the stuff you get when you start talking to people and doing their side quests. So it's, even if you're not going to eat them, it is rewarding in a sense.
Yeah,
you get all
like
these neat little story
it
beats.
reminded me a little bit of Oblivion, where there's more to these characters than meets the eye.
Yeah.
They just have better voice acting. Did you do the quest with the murderer? The guy who like you find bodies in the sewer, and you find out that he has been like just like a normal guy. He's like it starts a kind of interesting dynamic with him, because he's like, oh, are you gonna blame me for all your crimes? Like if you kill people, like it's like something that you can do. It's just one of the random characters you meet. I thought that the florist was interesting. She's mute.
Yes.
And you can bewitch her or whatever, and she still doesn't speak. And I'm like, wow, she ain't kidding.
No.
And people leave notes for her, or she leaves notes, something along those lines. That was
the
pretty
poet
cool.
in the graveyard and all that stuff. But it's interesting because you have this character who can't speak or communicate normally. I think the only time you do is like if you kill her, like you hear her thoughts or whatever.
Okay.
That was pretty cool. And the brothers. Do you remember the twins?
We're going to run away or something.
Yeah, and they're just sitting there, and like, what are you waiting for? We don't know. I'm like, so is this? I was like, is this deep, or is this like stupid?
Two dumb guys just
not
doing
anything. It was kind of interesting. It gave me something to think about anyway. And I thought it was so cool how like later on in the game, it's not even, I don't think, mandatory, but you can run into your mom and the butler.
Yes,
that's
right.
Yeah,
and it's very, very, very interesting. And I'm like, wow, you can like eat your butler and your mom in this game.
Does it actually allow you to eat your mom?
Yeah.
Oh God.
Yeah, pretty dark.
That's awful.
So those were my favorite. I don't know. Do you have any other memorable, like outside of the main story?
Well, I was gonna. I don't want. I don't want to talk like. I know we're gonna be talking spoilers. I mean, I think my favorites are really the main characters, so I don't want to say too much. I thought the interactions with your mom are very interesting.
Yes.
Where
she has dementia. I think.
Where the game does this. It was kind of a hard line to see where. is that I wasn't sure if her voice acting, I'm not calling it bad.
Yeah.
But I think she either has dementia or mental illness, and she's talking to you in a very like she's not with it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I'm not sure if it's because of the craziness that's going on in the city or she has a mental illness.
Well-
I just felt like I would get more of an interaction with her when you finally get to meet her, but you get kind of a blank slate of nothing, and it's kind of unnerving, but I'm not sure if it was on purpose.
I think you do wipe her memories.
Yeah.
Well, here's what you can do. I don't know if you guys did this at all, but if you progress her quest further, you can look in the window, like I was telling you, and you can see her talking with other members of your family who are dead.
Yes.
And
I
so
saw
when
that.
you're the only person that you come clean with her that you're a vampire, and you say I'm dead, she says I know, and it's like, so basically she doesn't believe that you're even really there. 'cause
Yeah,
it's just like everybody.
that was really the line that was kind of unnerving to me, where
Yeah.
I'm not sure if she's mentally ill or she's kidding. Like I don't really, because you just tried to have a serious moment with her and it doesn't land.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Well, because she's totally checked out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Did you have any other fun side people there?
Yeah, so I think for me, Riley, you mentioned a lot of them. I love the conversations with Jonathan Reed's mom, but one of my favorite interactions are between the poet in the graveyard and the publicist who keeps rejecting him. Which I think is really funny.
Yeah.
I think there's a one line that I have screenshotted because it's very, very true to me. It said, the publicist says, "It's a very nice man, but a very poor writer."
That's so
Something
funny.
like that. Very funny. But I think other than that, I had more to say about the main characters, but I think
Yeah.
we'll get into that at a certain
Yeah.
point.
So let's rip off the Band-Aid here.
Let's do it.
Let's get into some vampire stuff. So this game started out, you were like, okay, so get past the first like 20 minutes because it gets better. And I'm like, no, I think it's a very successful beginning. And I'll tell you why. Because I thought that this game was going to be even better than it is. Like I was a little tricked in the beginning. So the opening is after you have been infected and become a vampire, and all you see is like shadowy fog and everything, and you see this big glowing red spot, and it's like a smoky figure or whatever. And what winds up happening is that he bites and kills his sister.
Mhm.
And so I'm thinking like, okay, so I'm like, wow, very impactful moment for one. But I'm thinking, okay, so this is what's going to happen if you don't eat people. Like you're just going to become so consumed by it that this is all you see is like an objective marker, you know, like
sure.
Yeah.
So, but that's not really what happens. But
This intro, I think right off, so to kind of give people a picture, like right off the bat, like you wake up in a mass grave,
Yeah.
like you're dead, right? Or and your sister is looking for you because you just came back from World War I.
Right.
I believe is kind of the setup
Yep.
here.
Yeah.
You immediately just kill her right off the bat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I'm just like, oh shit, here we go. The reason why I sort of cautioned you guys was there's kind of a generic run sequence where you're running.
Yeah.
well, you
from
have to escape from the vampire
yeah,
hunters.
where I said just get past that. When I was playing this, I said, oh man, this game might be rough. I don't know. But you know, because the combat is it's a little janky, but it's fine. There's a giant running sequence. I said, I don't know.
Well, you're
But-
not really prepared for anything
yeah,
yet.
sure. But Nick, I don't know if you have thoughts about intro before we continue.
I guess, man, I always feel like I'm this way where like if you two differ on something, I'm always like right in the middle. It's like I don't mind the running sequence at the beginning. I thought it was like whatever.
It's very whatever.
I thought it was pretty impactful, you know, at the beginning when you bite your sister and have to take off running.
Yeah.
I thought like the story-based aspect of it was nice, but I am not the biggest fan of running sequences. Yeah.
Sure.
Hate running.
Yeah, even in real life too. Hate
Yeah,
running.
yeah.
Hate
Yeah.
running. Can't do it.
Low on exercise
Right.
here.
So you are rescued by the head of the hospital, Pembroke Hospital, his Dr. Swansea, Edgar Swansea, and he's like, I got a job for you.
Mhm.
And you wind up joining the staff. Nobody else knows you're a vampire. He is like, you know, take care of the patients, you know, do whatever, but you kind of have to behave yourself around him. Like it's a very kind of delicate. You have the pillar of each community. He's one of them. And like the more people that you kill and eat, the community will suffer, and the characters will start to suspect you. People will disappear, etc. I thought was very interesting about this beginning also was you witness this guy murder someone right in front of you, and he's the first person that you can eat. He's just kind of like a bum, like one of the mob people at the beginning. And it's like, if you're gonna kill anyone, it's the guy that just committed like an unwarranted murder right in front of you. I thought that was a very interesting way to like, just do it. Come on, just try it. You know, that's kind of cool. And then like as you go on, you know, as I mentioned, there's all these different kind of characters who have different degrees of good and bad, and you know, it kind of blossoms out from there. You have kind of this interesting, you're soon introduced to Ashbury is like the I guess love interest sort of this game, and she is introduced as the hospital's benefactor, and she is being blackmailed by somebody that you have to find out about. And this person is also a vampire, as one of the first bosses, I believe. You wind up rescuing that priest guy, Hampton, Sean Hampton, and you have to go find him. He becomes a vampire himself. It's a whole big thing. But what I thought when it really kicked off was when that like really cranky racist old lady like disappears from the hospital, and because she is behind like a closed door, she's in a bed by herself, and you come back to the hospital at one point and it's like just covered in blood, and like what happened here?
It's like, oh shit.
So the priest like it seems like he killed her and like made off with her, and like nobody can find her, so it becomes like a big sort of investigation what happened to her. And you wind up finding this, like, I was like, that was when I messaged the group chat. I'm like, this game has a little more going on than I thought, because you find this, like, undercity in, like, the sewers where all the skulls live. And it's like, they're not even, like, named. It's just, like, all these people who have, like, fallen through the cracks. And she winds up showing up there. And I didn't really know what was going on with this character for a long time. And it pays off at the end, but it's a little weird. And at a certain point, you wind up investigating this killing spree. It's like, oh, a vampire is loose in the docks. And what winds up happening, we're going to get into Nick's big moment here.
Son of a bitch.
Is your sister has reanimated after you bit her and become a vampire herself. And there's this big, huge boss battle with her in a graveyard. And Nick, why don't you talk about your experience?
God, okay, fine. First of all, this boss battle was probably the hardest in the game.
It's one of them.
I think.
Very tough.
I think for me, it was probably the hardest boss in the game. I think I didn't game over a lot in
Couple
Vampire, but I
times.
gave over it a couple times here. So apparently in this boss fight, there's a priest, not Sean Hampton, a different priest.
Different guy,
Different priest is in like the center of it all, because it's you're supposed to have a funeral for Mary, or something like that is happening. That's why the priest is there.
Yeah.
And he's like knocked out, scared in the middle of the battlefield. And yeah, so fun fact, you can eat him, and you can also do that accidentally, and that's what ruined my perfect moral run. I went to go bite Mary, but it bit the priest, and I went, no, wait. It gave me, 3,000 experience. I'm like, fuck, I just ruined my perfect morality run, and because this game autosaves, I'm totally screwed. And also, if you die, the priest comes back, so I thought maybe I got saved, and I did not kill him. But no,
The run was
So
over.
the autosave fucked you.
the autosave got me. I don't know what happened there, if it was a misclick on my part,
Could be.
yeah.
Well, what's interesting about that, I think it should have been like a further prompt after you, because you're running around, you're mashing buttons, trying to figure something out. But that is interesting about that fight, is that he's gonna die either way. It's just a matter of who's gonna eat him, who's gonna do it. And so you can take the high road and do it, but if you let her do it, she refills like her whole like health.
Oh, that drove me nuts.
And it's just like, fuck. So that's pretty cool. And she kind of gives you shit, and rightfully so. Like you
kinda
did
deserve it.
this. You
Well, what was the
infected
whole
me.
setup to that battle? It was essentially her funeral, right?
Yes.
That you show
And
up
she
to.
wakes up.
Yeah,
and-
she wakes up, and here we go.
She was about to kill your mom and all that, but you managed to get your mom away,
Yeah.
and then you have
Yeah.
to kill Mary and whatever.
Pretty cool.
Yeah,
Um,
cool setup. Awful boss fight. I hated that.
Very rough for
Yeah.
Nick,
It's
unfortunately.
not a great time for me.
So this is about when you kind of get into like the wealthy district, and you find the Ascalon Club, Greg's previous place of employ. I thought this was kind of a cool. It's like it kept like pulling the curtain back and like, oh, this is like a society of vampires.
Yeah, like we were saying earlier, like this game does a better job with classism than you would think. Like
Yeah.
you have like the undercity of poor, decrepit vampires, the skulls like in the sewer, and you
Yes.
have like the high society vampires in the rich part of the city.
Yes.
Really interesting.
And
Can I
they-
say it's great how they're just like right there.
yeah.
Like
Yeah.
it's out in the open. They're just, you go in a building and they're just hanging out. They're in there.
Yeah, right.
Yes.
No one has any idea, but they're just there.
Right. And you can you wind up doing that theater quest for them where they have to kill somebody who's gone crazy in the theater, an actor who's part of the plot, I guess. But you can double cross them because they tell you you belong to us now, essentially. And if you double cross them, they start you're disbarred. And they won't help you as much as they would, and you start encountering them in the streets, and they try to kill you, like the named guys.
Yes.
Yep.
And I thought that was
cool.
pretty cool. So of course I'm gonna take the moral road. I'm gonna leave the Ascalon Society.
Yep.
Something that I didn't like. I'm gonna talk about it here. It was a big moment.
Ooh. Okay.
Was Dr. Swansea gets kidnapped at one point, and he gets kidnapped by the vampire hunters. And you have a big drawn out fight with this guy, and you can either kill him. This is the leader of the club.
Talking about Jeff McCollum?
Yes.
Yeah. All right.
You can either, it's kind of like a half-baked character to me. Like you didn't get a lot of face time with the guy. For me, like there was a part where so you can either kill him or let him go, right? And I am going to let him go, of course.
You can also make him a vampire.
Yes. So the thing is, in this boss fight, he's like mocking you and taunting you. He's like, yes, I'm gonna, kill your entire kind, whatever, vampire. Like, I'll get you for this read and all this stuff. And at the end, if you let him go, there's this big moment where Jonathan is like, I'm not Rabbit or whatever, we're not all like this. I'm gonna let you go. And he's like, I'll be after you, Reed. And he says, see, you're already calling me by name. We're making progress. And I'm like, you had a little quirky moment there. Like, okay, but he's calling you Reed in the boss fight. And I'm like,
I see.
Oh, okay.
I see.
It's just
Little direction issue with the voiceover.
Little attention to detail.
Fair enough.
That we get
Fair enough.
there. You gotta pay attention to these things. I was at this point totally perplexed by the direction. The story is very strange to me overall. Where you find the racist old lady in the sewers again, and she's a boss, and it's like pretty easy.
Yeah.
You-
Yes, I remember now.
and she's like a bloated whatever.
Yeah.
Blah blah blah. But you find that I mentioned the voices that are talking to you the whole time. This supernatural element where you're trying to figure out who infected you to begin with. And I thought it was kind of funny the direction it took, because he's like this specter that appears throughout the game, and he has like these big horns, and he's very creepy and imposing, and he kind of just like becomes like chummy with you like by the end. He's like, I was the one who infected you. And it's like this, he's like this ancient Celtic spirit that's existed for hundreds of years, and he's like, we need you to stop the Red Queen. And I'm like, who the fuck is this? It's like very out of nowhere, and it's like I felt like a little kind of last minute with this boss fight where you had to, I didn't think it was that hard.
For the Red Queen?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I get where she came from, because I think she spawned from Harriet Jones, who was the lady in the sewer who was patient zero.
Yeah, it's
I
like
think-
we've been cultivating every
Yeah.
couple hundred years. There's a perfect vampire that gives birth to the Red Queen or
Yeah.
something like that. And
Yeah.
it's-
I didn't think the boss was that hard either. It was like
yeah,
fine.
it's very like, okay, game's over now. But
Right.
what you find out is that Lady Ashbury leaves the city, and there's a kind of I did at least like the end epilogue sequence, the look of it where it's daytime now, and I don't know what the reason is that you can go out during daytime.
I don't know.
Is it? I don't think they explain it.
It kind of brings up my reasoning from before, but why is the whole game at night and everyone's awake?
Right.
It's really weird.
And it's kind of like we were talking about the Resident Evil thing where it should have been at daytime. It's like I get that that's hard, but they were capable in this game of making a daytime that went on for like 20 minutes.
Yeah,
and I like that
sure.
about it. You put the work in. So you're kind of wandering around her estate here. And I did like there's a nice detail where you see paintings of her through different eras, different famous artists and stuff. And it's like, oh, so she's actually like hundreds and hundreds of years old. It's like I have written MGS4 ending.
Yeah.
So this is you find her and I'm like, what is this game like? What is this all leading to? This very cartoony kind of encounter with the ghost guy. He's like, yes, I'll see you again, and next time it happens, or something like that. And you wind up, she's like, this is the man who infected me, and it's like the knight from the Middle Ages or whatever.
Right.
And I'm like, am I supposed to know who this is or care who it is? And the conversation goes on so fucking long.
It does. I know they talk about him a lot in the Ascalon Club. They like look up to this guy. Yeah,
and
that's about all they got.
But I wasn't like, oh my god, we're gonna see that guy. Like I don't know. It was he jumps on a fire, and I guess so. If you have been a good boy, you run away with her in the end. But if you're not,
but what was the knight's name? He's a guy from history.
William Marshall.
Yeah, it's William Marshall from. Yeah.
Whatever.
Can I just say I kind of like it how they kind of just turned all these like British or whatever folklore heroes into vampires. Like King Arthur is a vampire.
Yeah.
Kind of funny about just Jeff McCollum drinks King Arthur's blood. Is he a vampire now?
I have no idea.
I don't know how that works.
I think it's a little more complicated.
A little more complicated. I don't know.
So at any rate, for me, I felt that the structure of the story itself was a little too episodic, and I didn't feel that the answers to the central mysteries were satisfactory. But if you want to change my mind. Change my mind.
Sure. Like I actually thought each story beat was really impactful, or really it made sense to me as much as it could. That was actually I'm actually surprised that that's your review, because I thought the story was one of the main benefits to the game, not the combat and the action. It was all kind of secondary. Like for me, when if you have the setup of you are a doctor, you have to help people, but blah blah blah. But you're trying to solve like why this vampire virus is infecting the city at the same time as the Spanish flu.
Right.
And you're trying to figure out why that's happening. And then it gets a little bit supernaturally with the demon guy or whatever, that sort of thing.
Well, as we said, I didn't in the previous episodes, I didn't think the rules were super clear about how that works.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the way this game essentially ends up turning out is like if you were a 100% good guy, like you essentially travel the world with Lady Ashbury, she's your love interest, and you try to solve the vampire sickness or whatever. There's also, think of that as like the good plus ending. There's a good ending where you choose to stay in the castle together. That was Nick.
That's what I got.
Yeah. Because Nick unfortunately ate one person.
Oops.
There's a bad ending where she throws herself in the fire too, and you're stuck in the castle by yourself.
I think the worst ending is you don't even try to stop her from.
You just like let her just fucking burn herself,
and then you just kind of wander the world and just eat people.
Yeah,
it's fucking wild.
Yeah.
I think ultimately they really blew it by not having the man himself, Mr. Dracula, in this game.
The old guy in the chair should have been Dracula, not Marshall.
Yes, exactly. I would have shit my pants if that had happened. I would have been like, "Holy fuck, it's him!" Like,
"Holy shit, it's Edward Cullen."
Right? Oh my god.
Anyway, let's wrap here. There's not a lot to say. You can kind of see why this game was commercially unsuccessful. It's not very shiny or good looking, whatever. Relatively low marketing budget, it seems. Very saturated RPG market at the time, action RPGs. Hard to pin down who this is for, besides like people like us. Or if you like RPGs or if you like vampires, I guess.
Yeah.
However, the attention to detail and character is very good for the most part. Like all these wonderful side characters we talked about, and it is very nice to see that your actions have meaningful consequences for once, that the world will react to in a believable way.
Mm-hmm.
So very, very rare indeed. I don't know if you folks have anything else to add.
Nick, why don't you go and then I'll close.
This is final thoughts?
Yeah.
All right. So I guess one of my final thoughts here is I don't want to provide a rebuttal for Jeffrey McCollum as a half-baked villain because I think he was a lot more interesting than you two may give him credit for. Because he was right. I don't know if you remember from his note.
Go ahead.
He figured out what happened with the flu. He figured out the connection.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
And I don't have the note written down or anything, but you find the note in the pre-win hideout or whatever before you find Swansea. Like, he figured this out. He figured out the whole thing. And Jonathan Reed takes from his note and relates it back to how the whole supernatural thing and everything going on is connected.
Okay.
So it's really thanks to Jeff McCullum that you're able to solve this mystery.
Thanks, Jeff.
Yeah, so thanks, Jeff. You're a good guy. I thought his boss fight was like kind of cool, even though it was kind of annoying at times. I did think it was really interesting.
It was my one game over.
Yes, it was your game over. So I'm not saying he's a fantastic and amazing villain, but I want to, shed some light on this guy. He did a lot more for the plot than I think people realize. Also kind of meta that he's drinking, hundreds of years old blood from King Arthur, whether it's real or not, kind of cool. But anyway,
he's a big ivermectin guy these days.
He definitely would be if he was alive. Oh, he'd definitely be the ivermectin guy if he's in COVID times.
He might still be alive. Who
That's
knows?
true. If you're into a vampire, he probably is. Anyway, so at the end of the day, I do think the strongest parts of this game are the morality system actually feeding into the gameplay. Feeding was not on purpose. Trust me, that was not okay.
Not a pun.
Not a pun. But I think that's the strongest part of the game, especially when it comes to dealing with the pillars of all the districts. Because I actually didn't know this until I started researching.
I lost one of them, the lady.
Yeah, I think we all lost Dorothy Crane, right? Yeah,
Yes.
unfortunately. I think me not letting Edgar Swanson die actually was affected my ending. But either way, apparently the district cannot fall into chaos until you deal with the pillar.
Yep. Of
I
course.
did not know
Yep.
that. And if there is a special, not an ending, but you get a special achievement or trophy called London is Burning if you let all of the districts just go to total shit.
If you essentially kill all the main characters,
Kill all the main characters, kill all the pillars, everybody gets sick,
Purge.
skulls are running
Start
everywhere.
anew.
Yep,
Yeah.
exactly. Everything's burning. It's crazy. But either way, I think this game was legitimately pretty good. I'm happy I played it. I did have some tech issues.
Oh, sure.
Unfortunately, I won't get into them, but I did have some occasional crashes and whatnot.
Yeah.
But overall, I think this game set out to do a lot of gameplay and story integration, and I think it was pretty successful in that regard.
Sure. You guys want me to I'll have my final thoughts and I'll end it.
And we'll do the customary
You know what?
gradings.
Why don't we grade first and then I'll close.
All right.
Nick, go.
You want me to
you
go first?
start.
Yeah.
All right, I am going to give this game B 8 out of 10
Okay.
for me.
Sure.
I will do the same.
Cool.
I think it earned it.
Yeah.
Sure. I mean, yeah, I would say the same. It's probably an 8 out of 10 game. It's probably a B-ish, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think for me was a couple of things. Like I said in the intro, I picked this game up many times, put it down. Wasn't sure if I was going to play it.
The meta score is very unfavorable.
The meta score is very that's exactly
Like
it
a
has
70?
68, 70.
Yeah.
I think the reason why we chose to cover this was we have a series called Underrated Gems that goes on YouTube. We thought this maybe deserved a real entry because these AA games that don't have tons of budget but they aren't indie either, you don't get a lot of them. And I feel like this game I don't know, a 68 metascore, especially in a time period we live in where games are way overrated. This is way too low for a game like this.
You don't get a lot of respect for stuff where they put some effort into the detail and the writing and the concept,
sure. I was just very surprised. A couple of notes before I close. How competent the Bloodborne-ish combat was, how competent the voice acting was, and it was made by the Life is Strange people.
Right.
Which I mean, that was fascinating to me. But I think for me, maybe I like the story more than you guys. I was actually very into the story.
Oh, I liked it. I was into the story.
I liked it until the end-ish.
Sure. I think what kind of grounded it for me was they kind of touched on real world events, like Spanish flu is happening in London. A lot of people are sick. That's why people are in their
World War
houses.
I veterans.
World War I vet. It kind of all made sense that, well, is the Spanish flu causing the vampirism sickness? What's happening?
Yeah.
So I like that. And, blah, blah, blah. You get a little bit of vampire love story. And depending on, how well you succeeded, you either solve it together or not. It made sense for me. So I think in closing, it's probably one of the best morality systems I've seen. If you want to be a good guy, game is hard. If you want to be an evil guy, game is easy.
Very much like
Coder.
We were disparaging the BioShock morality system.
Yeah.
And this is exactly the antithesis.
Yeah,
it's like so much
sure.
better.
Yeah. So anyway, I'm gonna close. So the last thing I'll say is, if you like action adventure games or you like RPG-ish things, this game is very worth playing. And we chose to cover it because not many people played it, and I think you should. So that's it for this one, and we will catch you guys next time on Goddamn GameCube.